Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few people get together, total and complete strangers. They have no idea who they are. We've captured them in a van, put blindfolds over their faces, and brought them into the studio to record this episode with us. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here.
I've never been here before.
And we are here to tell you a story. Everyone has to tell a story or you're losing a finger.
Yikes.
What story elements did you guys have? I had anti-hero.
I had
goal.
I have unique weapon.
All right. Who wants to go first?
I think goal.
Okay, I guess I'll go first.
All right, let's hear it.
Put a little bit of building here. Okay, so the goal is to, whatever our group of heroes are trapped in, like either their like caravan broke down or they're like on a deserted either island or desert or wasteland of some sort.
All right.
With no seemingly means to get out, and that is their goal, is to escape the deserted island / wasteland.
Okay.
And all the perils that come with it.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I guess I should talk about the anti-hero then. Maybe that's what I should talk about next.
Good idea.
So the anti-hero he's kind of like a middling magician. He's not, if he can figure out a way to live longer than like his normal life span of like 100 years or so, then he'll probably be a really good bad guy, which is his initial goal, is to be a really good bad guy. And he is sort of rising in the ranks of the villain, just like a really excellent bad guy. And he's gotten some recognition. He wears a hood over his face and goes around dressed in black, as bad guys typically do. And that's working for him really well. So people don't really know who he is. And he figures, if this thing doesn't work out, then I can always do something else. Which is in fact exactly what happens. Is he essentially, the heroes kind of like travel to and kill, and maybe not kill, but defeat the villain. And he kind of sees it coming and then tries to, at like the last minute, kind of set himself up as like their ally.
The ally of the good guys?
Yeah, in order to, and I think I have the correct idea behind an anti-hero. It's a person who does heroic things but doesn't exactly have heroic
motives.
Yeah, okay,
to do
so I guess this dictionary requires it. An anti-hero or an anti-heroine is a main character of a story who lacks conventional heroic qualities and attributes such as idealism, courage, and morality.
Kind of a hero in spite of himself.
Right.
Let's give this guy a name. I like this guy already.
Walter.
Of course he is. He's Walter. I think we should go like, Seth, you're a little bit generic, but I think we should go with the caravan in a wasteland. They break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of me is thinking this is kind of like a multi. Okay. So I've had this idea for a while, but when they need to escape, what it is they have a van on the edge of a desert and their radiator has blown out and they're at the gas station, right? The one that's at the edge of the desert, which has the sign that says, no more water 100 miles.
Yeah.
And the gas station is where they are, and they have they have to go into the wasteland to assault the villain's, coven, to like assault his fortress, or they're like just coming out. No, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because if they have already done the big thing, the goal is to escape. But can you really make any more drama? Because like after you've defeated the villain, what else is a struggle? Mm-hmm. There's not really struggles after that.
One idea inside of something like that would be almost like maybe a little bit of like and then there were none kind of thing, where they're trapped somewhere and like they're all together somewhere for a particular purpose. In this case, let's say just took out bad guy.
Right.
So that part of it's not necessarily the problem, right. But who all kind of allied together? Everybody rallied around killing this guy off, but now a different trouble, aka a survival situation, is hit, and no one really truly knows if they can trust.
Right. There was a lot of my enemy of my enemy is my friend, but my enemy of my enemy is still my enemy, and my enemy of my enemy is my friend, but as soon as my enemy's enemy has been eliminated, then that person kind of defaults back to being your enemy.
Yeah.
Kind of, and maybe not right away, but like just kind of that, whatever they were all coming together because they all had the goal of defeating, the big bad guy,
Right.
but then kind of not realizing, wait a minute, who did we all ally up with? And now there's like a different kind of struggle going on. And let's say, food starts going missing. Well, then who do you really trust? So there's like small cliques of people that kind of like, well, they're a part of the, this guild or like this thing, and so they
Right.
kind of trust each other
Right.
because of like other associations, and so then they're kind of like all interspersed, like making their small cliques, but then all having to work together for a greater good. Well, they're all kind of independently trying to figure out maybe who else in here is the not trustworthy one, because
Right.
something keeps happening.
Right. It could be kind of like a Goat Man situation. Do you guys know about the Legend of Goat Man?
No.
It's a creepypasta on the internet. It's really scary. But the long and short of it is that if you're in a room with a bunch of people you don't know, the opportunity is that one of them could be Goatman because they have a face that you just kind of slide over. So it's like if you're camping by yourself and like it starts to rain and you like run into like the storm shelter and there's like a bunch of other people there and it's like, okay, there's 15 of us. And then you guys do something. And then someone was like, and all 16 of us should be like this. And you're like, wait, there's 15. But then there's actually 16 because the Goat Man keeps coming in and like taking things or spying on you or taking people and like replacing them. And it's just like this kind of misremembering thing that happens where as soon as you actually it's difficult to pin down whether they were here or not, especially because he mostly invades groups of strangers, So it could be something like that, where, yes, they killed the villain, or maybe they think they killed the villain, but really, okay, it could be something like they go to his fortress in the wilderness, right, and lock him away, or do something, lock him away, or steal something from him, or seal him in the ground or something, and then they come out, and they're at this kind of way station. Whether if it's a gas station or not, that doesn't matter. But the point is that it's a way station where they're stopping, and it's like there's one path through. You have to go on this road, and the people at the way station aren't letting them go through because they're like, he's with you.
Uh-oh.
We locked him in the desert, and you guys went in to do something, but he's with you now. So now this kind of game of mafia or like werewolf has to take place, where they try to like find him and like clear their own name, but there's a lot of people who don't know each other. Does that kind of keep the same sense of what you were saying, Seth? They like have to find him,
I know,
but he's like kind of hiding inside of them. So like not inside of them, but like he'll like appear as this person, and since everyone hasn't agreed to all meet together, everyone kind of is protecting themselves by not meeting together. He's kind of sowing the seeds of dissonance so that they stay separate, so that he can continue to hide.
Well, there's I think I should introduce the unique weapon.
Let's hear it.
Okay, one of the party is kind of an unassuming character. He's kind of scrawny. His name is Judd, and he's kind of bad complexion and kind of bad hair, kind of thinning and kind of.
Who told you could do things? You could write that about me.
Shh. No, anyway, Judd. But Judd has this kind of a box-like contraption that he carries around, and it looks at first look at you'd think it's just a piece of luggage. It's like because it's like in a bag-like thing with a strap, a shoulder strap and stuff.
Right.
And the backstory on it might be an episode all by itself, but he has come into his possession a ray gun. Like a bad 50s sci-fi movie.
Right.
They have ray guns. And what it is, it's like this contraption fires or shoots, if you will, a highly focused, extremely dense, hyper short wavelength beam or burst of radiation.
Yeah.
It's like a flashlight, but we're talking, as you go out of the visible spectrum toward ultraviolet and the wavelengths become shorter and shorter. You pass through X-ray and then we're at the dense end of gamma radiation.
You start to get into danger light.
Right. And this gamma radiation, I mean, it literally, whatever it strikes, it literally creates molecular breakdown. I mean, this thing is a powerful, and I'm thinking that the fortress that they assaulted, the evil manipulator kind of had been running his empire from this impregnable fortress, and Judd just comes along and just blasts the locks and just blasts. I mean, this is a real intense weapon, but he doesn't want it like widely touted about because why does he have this and where did he get it and who made it and all these questions, he'd just as soon not
answer.
Exactly.
Right.
And the problem with it, of course, is that with intense gamma radiation, is that there is side effects. Like, you blast something with this and they're radioactive,
Right.
Yeah, you should be using this in conjunction with some serious hazmat gear, but
yeah, at least a pair of at least a leather, like a lead lined glove or something.
Right. But anyway, Judd has some minimal gear, to protect himself, but he has been, he has come along and he's not the brains of the outfit, but he's got the hardware,
Cool. Does it make like a walk, 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 walk noise when it fires?
Well, it's, can't you just picture this from a bad 50s,
exactly.
black and white sci-fi movie? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
A ray gun. Anyway, I always wanted to have a movie have a story with a ray gun in it.
That's good. I like it.
The other thing that's kind of good is that you shoot a bullet at the goat man, and he has, because of the nature of his flesh literally like separates and the bullet will pass through. He's very difficult to hit with a projectile weapon as he is to see and get a fix on.
Right.
But the ray gun he's vulnerable to the ray gun. So, he is really trying to work his magic to the highest degree because he knows he's in trouble here.
Yeah. I'm thinking that maybe the base that is the fortress of the bad guy is in fact Area 51.
Oh, of course it is. Certainly.
Definitely it does a lot of work at being obfuscated and not have anyone know what's going on in there.
And of course, one of the main reasons Judd, when he was in the Air Force and he, when he was stationed at Area 51 and he had these great clearances and everything, somehow after he was, back in civilian clothes, shall we say, and had signed all kinds of non-disclosure agreements and, certain security waivers and all kinds of things like that. It's when a few trusted individuals became aware that he was in possession of this unique weapon. And, I don't think that I've ever heard him actually admit to having lifted it from the premises at Area 51.
Oh, no, for sure not.
Right. But then the question comes, well, where did you get this thing? And it's questions he'd choose not to answer. But there you go.
Yeah. So I kind of have this picture of a sort of those combination diner and gas station places, and they have like their big van or whatever sort of parked underneath where the gas station or where the shop is.
Yeah.
And the owner said, yeah, it's going to be like 3 days before we can get a radiator out to these parts, maybe there's like a dust storm blowing in, or it's going to be like a day, but then like a dust storm blows in and this whole story takes place in like the span of a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and there's a few ramshackle buildings and stuff around. There's some people.
Right.
There's this one guy, I'm thinking I'm going to call him Butch. He is up like at the counter, and Gladys is the lady behind the counter that dishes up the pie and the, whatever, and the coffee. And he has kind of got a toothpick in his mouth, and he's nursing his cup of coffee, and he's there mainly to kind of keep an eye on things.
Right.
Kind of a self-appointed.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We got some good characters here in this story.
How are you doing, Seth? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. So part of what I think, I want to have a conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want part of them to be kind of jubilant because they feel like they've accomplished the thing already.
Yeah.
But then to have someone come and say, you haven't accomplished the thing yet, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I keep thinking about this movie called Legion, where it's a really weird movie. It's supposed to be like another virgin birth or something, I think. And then like all the angels in heaven are coming down to kill this baby. And Gabriel like goes down and like gives up his wings and gets a bunch of guns and like defends from all these zombie like things inside this kind of diner in the middle of nowhere sort of situation, That's what my brain is casting to, except for the fact that there's a lot of sort of intermingled issues. You kind of get some of the backstory based on like, oh, these people are traveling together. This guy right here is an interdimensional traveler, right? He's like just passing through and he owes the hero like this great debt. And then there's like this other guy who they just recently picked up who's like really smart. And that's the anti-hero. And he's kind of like loose morally, but he's trying to do the right thing because he really has realized that the villain is like not good. But then he's kind of waffling a little bit on that because once he realizes that the villain is in fact amongst them, and he kind of like, I don't know. I mean, if the villain came to me right now, I'd probably go along with him because I kind of like said I would. And, just a lot of like interpersonal mingling where you'd kind of get maybe like a chapter a piece for these little interpersonal things as you kind of build up this picture of the villain who I'm trying to decide if he's going to be like, part of me was thinking that he's going to be kind of like the personification of obfuscate. I can't think of the right word. When you kind of like hide who your personality is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of like that made flesh, basically, of like the dishonesty of hiding who you really are.
Right.
I don't know. Sometimes I just like to have a good old fashioned bad guy. And sometimes I like to have moral lessons. So maybe there shouldn't be a moral lesson, but I kind of like the idea of a villain whose entire system and everything is built on like just hiding who he is, but I'm struggling to figure out whether they're going to fight him or whether they're coming from fighting him. Seth, this was your setting, so you got to tell me which one it is.
I would say they're coming from fighting him. They're stuck at the diner, but I think what's gone on, so if this is like an Area 51, like the whole world is kind of in this turmoil. So of course it's Area 51. So this diner is part of like a series of checkpoints. And I mean, because obviously they have weaponry and stuff way beyond we can think of. And someone in Area 51 kind of got his hands on some kind of, I don't know, interdimensional or like high-tech stuff and embodied just, I don't know, pure evil of some sort.
Right. Opened a portal to another world or something.
Right. And so it had kind of thrown, maybe not in a complete, let's say, Mad Max kind of setting where everything is in like complete disarray kind of stuff. But, like say countries, governments, they're still there, but like everything's in shambles. Most technology is, in shambles unless you have some of this weird kind of disheveled together kind of high tech stuff from people who knew what they were doing, like this ex-Air Force guy who, had done stuff with this. So he knows some things and he's able to put stuff together. So what this team is, I think, is a kind of a group of, let's say, the best of the best, kind of almost like Armageddon. We're like, a giant asteroid is going to hit the earth. So we got to send the best of the best.
Right.
Let's send, some oil riggers up there to drill a hole in this rock and plant a nuke in it.
Right.
But they are kind of really a bunch of misfits.
Right. It's kind of like, well, everything is in shambles. They're like, well, who's going to, we got to send our guys in there and like stop this portal and take out like the guy that is basically embodied the, whatever the catalyst of doing this. And so they do it, they get it done. But again, that's why they're all a group of strangers. So you have all these different teams. So you've got like 15 or 20 people sometimes on some of these teams, with all their, intel and secretary and, their kind of their mercenary protection team for each different group from some of the major countries that are all trying to work together to take this out. So maybe that's why all these people now, like, they're all leery of each other. So at this checkpoint, which is like this diner, hotel, truck stop kind of thing, but it's like there's a force field. Obviously whatever was there wasn't taken out. The villain or the bad guy, I think he was hit with the ray gun.
Yeah.
And his, let's say, molecular structure broke down. And so it's like they're like on the idea that matter can't be destroyed.
Yeah.
So instead of they think they killed him because, I mean, man, we hit him with the ray gun and, whoop, 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 he disappeared and things settled down. But, of course, at the perimeter where they've got this all in a giant like force field so that, these people can't get out unless they detect that, whatever the problem was taken care of. That's why they won't let them out.
Right.
And so that's why then they're stuck here. And it's like, okay, well then, we can't let you out because he's with you. And so maybe that's like your goat man thing. They can't like really see him, although there's like someone that floats around because and I'd say like, if you guys are familiar with like and then there were none. Kind of or like Clue. I think it's redone in Clue, but it's kind of where the bad guy he's floating around and is pretending to be one of everybody else, but he's slowly taking certain people out.
Yeah.
And so like that's happening. The storm has kind of come in, and I think it's kind of like they can't get out of the force field, but whatever this other storm is has kind of got them kind of caught in like not a Groundhog Day kind of thing, but like all other time and space is kind of frozen, maybe.
Well, I'm
around them, and so they're kind of stuck.
I have this picture of how it comes to light. Is they okay? We're broke down here, and they go into the diner, right? And Butch is up at the counter, and he's got his cup of coffee, and then he says, "Hey, what the someone who took French fries off my plate."
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when there's something going on here.
Right. Maybe okay, here's an idea, Seth, going along with your idea and then going along a little bit with your idea, Reed. Maybe the way that they were trying to stop him was by putting like some sort of like time dilation device in where the portal was and therefore kind of freezing the whole thing or slowing it down. But they were supposed to have a certain amount of time to get out, but they didn't have that time, but they don't know that, right? Because they're in, like you were saying, a kind of a Groundhog Day thing where every chapter starts with them pulling up to the what's it called? To the diner thing at the edge, and something's always wrong, and then something happens and the essence of the guy takes them all out, and then it kind of starts again. Right? And the people who are in it, Butch and the old little lady who do coffee, they're all part of it too. They're all part of their team. They've just been doing this for like years, right? And that's why it feels so comfortable for them, but that they have never trusted each other. And there's like all these kind of weird similarities that happen that no one can really explain, and somehow it, basically the idea is that they can't leave with the essence of the villain with them. And the ray gun kind of demattered him, but now the sort of portal that he was the catalyst for creating has kind of spread out through the entire place. And now they can't go through the barrier because the barrier won't let the villain through, but now the villain is kind of everywhere.
Okay, so here's an idea, and I know you're familiar with this, Levi. So Darker Than Black, which one was it? It would have been...
That's an anime.
It is. So this whole thing, so it would have been Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
The one that went over South America. It was just this giant black hole. No one could get inside of it. It was completely gone. It was as if it didn't exist, right? So I'm thinking something like this. So you have like around Area 51, all these strange things are happening. All these teams are going in there and they're doing all this stuff. And so kind of like that, almost as like, that's kind of what that made me think of is perhaps inside of that, these teams of people that disappeared forever that were stuck there when it disappeared.
Right.
They're continuing trying to basically solve the issue, to do the thing where in the end of the one, and I'm bad with names, so I can't remember his name, but he chooses to basically dissolve the anti-gate particle instead of doing something which then would do the same thing in South America, or allowing it to do the same thing in South America. Like he chose a different path. Whereas like kind of maybe something like the same thing. That would be like this. They've whatever choice they made that put what was causing all of that deteriorated this. So I'm thinking like at eventually, like the rest of the world is, let's say, maybe functioning independent, and they just don't know what's going on.
Right.
Like everyone that was inside of there is,
or maybe that is what Area 51 has turned into. That's the reason why people aren't allowed to go there, because it's literally this containment field of a bunch of things that the government doesn't, that is why you can't go to Area 51, is because it's this huge area where the government has started to kind of look in and try and figure out what's going on, but the whole thing is kind of in turmoil. Something happened in the 50s, and now this is how it is now. That'd be kind of a sad ending if the heroes are just kind of trapped there forever, though. I don't know how we could make it.
I don't think they'd be trapped there forever, but I think what it is it's something like that where sure they could get out, but whatever it is, I don't know how it would be, but they like that containment field that is, let's say, kicked in and keeping them there is also keeping anybody else from getting in.
Maybe kind of like,
it's because they chose.
Did you see Doctor Strange, the Doctor Strange movie, Seth?
Yeah.
Kind of like how at the end, Doctor Strange like locks Dormammu. Reed, have you seen Doctor Strange?
Yep.
Spoilers for Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange locks Dormammu, like the destroyer god guy, in his phantom realm by like creating a time loop. And he basically tells Dormammu that if you don't seal away and never come back to Earth, I'm just going to stay in this loop. And yes, you can technically kill me as many times as you want, but I can keep you here, not doing anything other than killing me for the rest of eternity. So, like, decide. Because I'm either going to lock you here, and yes, I'll probably die a billion trillion times, but you will also be trapped here. So maybe that is kind of the end result they get to every single time, with some hope for being unlocked. I don't really know how there could be some hope if things are kind of repeating over and over, unless they can like remember that things are repeating, but that gets kind of weird.
I think maybe what it is because what they choose is to basically try to shut the they try to shut the villain down. Whereas by doing that, because they're, let's say, the selfishness of wanting whatever else this other thing was bringing, where like all of them have their thing. Because of course, like the way that works is like, oh, we got to take out this, someone. I mean, there's always someone there on every side. We're like, oh wow, this horrible thing. But what if we were in control?
Yeah, there's always a Boromir, of course.
Yeah. And so in kind of each different factions, the selfishness, the choice that they made, it's not so much the choice they made at the diner, but it goes back to what they did before that. Ultimately, the choices they made in taking out the villain, it wasn't really the villain that needed taken out. It was what was being caused. And yet, because of what was bringing in, it was like all of them, they maybe secretly had that idea of like, okay, we stopped this, but we want to keep Area 51 open to whatever this weird power access that it contains.
Right.
When really that's what needed shut down is what it actually is, not the one guy that was manipulating it at that given time.
I kind of like that because you have different motivations for different people, and then you have, who's the guy with the ray gun?
Judd.
Right?
Yeah.
I think maybe he's got to like, at first he's kind of heralded as like the hero for like doing the right thing. I think that the ray gun isn't just radiation. It isn't just danger light. which is what I'm calling radiation now. It isn't just danger light. It's also it's like a 0-point modulator. It takes the light from the vacuum of space from wherever this dimension is that the villain is tapping into, right? It unmakes and breaks down things. And unfortunately, when he shot the villain with it, it didn't so much destroy the villain as just like make the hole bigger.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think I've got a little bit of maybe close to a wrap up
Okay,
for
let's
it.
hear it.
So I think Judd and a few of them, like kind of like one of those like a Groundhog Day thing where as it keeps repeating, someone kind of catches on to something. And what it is so it's like all takes place within a day's time.
Right.
Of like getting there, like checking in, the storm comes in much like Groundhog Day, where then they're stuck there because of the storm, and then it kind of goes into the next day or that, however that works. And I think someone kind of as each, like you said, each different chapter, and as it focuses on different people, kind of goes through several of the main people, and then you have like a group of them figure it out. They realize we've done this before.
Right.
And then we've done this again, and we keep coming to the same conclusion. Whatever it is, they can't change that. They already made the choice of, let's say, ousting the villain. And so inside of that day's time, what I think they figure out is they can't convince, like there's only like the 3 or 4 of them maybe that realize what they have to do. And to do that, they can't let the other people let on. They have to let them do the whole, and then there were none kind of bickering and, that day and a half or 2-day time period.
Right.
Of kind of separating into each other's own groups, turning on each other, and eventually turning to the same, let's say, bloodbath that kind of ends in them doing it all again. And so I think then they have to like time it out, and they try 2 or 3 times because they're like, okay, at the rate that if we do these things or can set these things in motion, it'll keep, let's say, these tensions at bay so that they won't come up until after we're gone, and then that will buy us an extra 10 minutes. And so they've like done this 100 times and go, okay, if we like over the course of the first like 3 hours, we have to do this, this, and this, and say this, and get this person to, go along with this, so that then, they will then function this way, so that it gives us the biggest amount of time frame before they all end in a bloody bath of, either the villain kind of removing them or them literally killing each other, to go back and actually hit the portal itself with the ray gun and dismantle the source of the problem.
Right.
And so I think that's the resolve, is that, figuring out we've got, like 72 hours, before all of this calculated thing will end and where it's reset. And so, then they have to venture back through the wilderness to the fortress, the place.
Right.
And then, fight through the, as again, like let's say without the villain physically there kind of controlling what's going on. So it's pulling out like lots more peril to come through that they have to fight.
And soon as like the people who maybe they sort of figure, this is really terrible sounding. Maybe they sort of figure out who can be convinced and who can't.
Yeah.
And they just, Boromir came around at the end, but for a while there, he was their enemy, and it's like, listen, you don't want to go because you're just waiting, or you don't trust this guy or that guy, but we have to go, And so then they go, but then they end up meeting that person along the path, or that person comes with them and then turns against them, or there's like lots of different things. And I imagine there's kind of like whispering in people's ears about what you could do, what you could do with this power, or, all you have to do is hold on. And I have this kind of picture that they all have some piece that kind of connects them back to the villain or to this other place, like an artifact or something, and the end thing, the last thing being the ray gun, obviously, that has to be kind of not given up, but basically given up.
Yeah. And Walter has kind of some of the key. He has kind of the key that has, that knows how each of these personalities have to fit together. But in order to pull it off, he pretty much like has to give up his place. And it's just like, all of his little manipulations and stuff kind of all go for naught. And in the end, he just gives himself up in order to pull it all together.
Right. It's like they're at a point in time, and he's like, "No, you don't understand. That's not how he thinks." And they look at him and they're like, "How do you know how he thinks? You can't claim that you know how he thinks." Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there like, if we don't do it, if I don't tell them that I understand how the villain is because of this reason or that reason, and he's like, and I know that the lies don't work. I remember all the lies that I've told that don't work. I can't convince them. The only thing I convince them with is truth. And so then he like has to tell them, and there's kind of like that tense moment, where it's like, we just fought a bunch of our friends and killed them, and are we gonna have to fight you now? You feel like right now it feels like you're an enemy, but you're helping us. Oh yeah, gosh, that sounds so stressful.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind reading that book. That sounds like a Stephen King book, but I would not want to watch that movie or live that life.
Yeah.
So Seth, what's the end? Are they successful or no?
I have to think that, I don't know. In half of my mind, I think they get really, really close, but it kind of ends with almost like kind of ending with not quite making it, but with the idea that like 2 or 3 more times as
or maybe it kind of ends like they're like they've done the thing and the building is kind of crashing down and they're like about to go, and like the last thing they kind of say to each other is, all right, it's either this or like, we'll see you next time. I'll see you in an hour or so.
Yeah.
That's like, we don't know if it's going to fix, but we do know that it might fix. And if it doesn't, then we'll just start again.
Yeah, something like that, where it's like in all logical guesses, they figured out again what might be the fix, but left with, sure, as far as their character and their story has developed to, that is the fix. But then that kind of, is it really? I mean,
yeah.
They've come so far here and they've learned and grown and they're doing this other thing, but that possibility that, maybe it is just a different wild, thing. And if it isn't what it is, then they'll be back at ground one, figuring out from, pulling into the diner again.
Right. Whew. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait, It Gets Better. Is this the first time we've recorded this episode? Have we been here before? If you would like to leave us a message, if it's a private message, that's fine. Send me an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. Make sure to put in the subject line, private message, and I will not read it out. If you would like to add us on Twitter, just add us at @getsbettercast. If you would like to hear more episodes like this with questionably happy endings, I would say just wait. It gets better.